In one of my other videos, we talked about the aurochs, which was the keystone species for many of the grasslands of Europe. Today, we're going to be talking about the keystone species for the plains and some forests of North America, the bison. At one time, anywhere from 30 to 70 million bison roamed throughout North America. Most of these were plains bison, which lived in grassland ecosystems. The Canadian Wildlife Federation describes the impact of this keystone species on the grasslands in this way. In the days when they grazed on the grasslands in huge numbers, plains bison greatly influenced the ecology of their habitat. Their wallows became temporary ponds in spring and home to a variety of water-loving creatures, such as ducklings and frogs. Their grazing encouraged the growth of grasses that flourish when the vegetation is short. Their heavy grazing, coupled with dung production, may have been a major factor in building the deep, rich, organic soils of the prairies." End quote. The plains bison's northern cousins, the wood bison, existed in far smaller numbers than the plains bison. They lived in the parkland regions, the boreal forest, some wetland meadows, and on the eastern slopes of the Rocky Mountains. They were taller and heavier than the plains bison, but less stocky in appearance. In the late 1800s, the bison of North America were nearly hunted to extinction by European settlers. Now there are just thousands of plains and wood bison in Canada and the United States. Some live in public herds kept in national parks, while others are raised as livestock in private herds owned by ranchers. Once the bison were removed from the land, the Great Plains grasslands became one of the most endangered ecosystems in the world. Part of this is because the grasslands were turned into agricultural land where crops were grown, and so the grass was ripped up and it simply is no longer there. In other areas, the grasslands still exist, but without their keystone species of the bison. Because of this, the bison had to be replaced, and so ranchers with cattle are the ones who are tasked with caring for these lands. Cattle are, of course, a pretty good substitute for bison, although bison have several advantages in the harsh North American climate over their cousins, the cows. Bison are better able to handle both droughts and harsh winters than cattle are. In fact, in a blizzard, cattle will allow themselves to be driven by the wind, which can get them in trouble. Bison, on the other hand, will push into the wind or simply let themselves be buried by the snow and then pop up later. Also, because of their huge size, bison are far better equipped to deal with large predators such as wolves. Although they were a completely wild species just a couple of hundred years ago, bison are quickly becoming a commonly domesticated livestock animal. Of course, we've all seen bison burgers at various restaurants. They're quite tasty and the meat is very lean. While most ranchers are still preferring to raise beef cattle, many are beginning to raise bison as well. It's very much like raising beef cattle, although there are some differences in terms of fencing, behavior, and handling system requirements. Thanks to conservation efforts, it is likely that both plains bison and wood bison will exist in the wild of North America for some time to come, and I think that's a good thing. as a fun fact, did you know that there are European bison? Oh yeah, they're called Wisent. And conservation efforts in Europe are allowing those bison, which were nearly hunted into extinction in the 1900s, to rebound in population and to be released back into the wild, much like the aurochs. What do you think? Will bison continue to live in both the wild and in agricultural settings? Let me know in the comments.